Okay, welcome back to the channel. I tried to do this video earlier. I was gonna do a read and react commentary video to a couple of to an article describing what Florida needs to do against Florida State this upcoming Saturday, and news about recent flip Ty Jackson from USC. And apparently, there's rumors that he will not be the only recruit flipping to Florida this week. Maybe not even the only recruit flipping to Florida today. But right now, we're going to talk about Ty Jackson. And then we're going to get into this Hail Florida Hail .com article. Gators flip top 24/7 linebacker Ty Jackson from USC. From the majority of his recruiting process, Seminole Ridge four-star linebacker Ty Jackson has been consistent in saying he planned to make a commitment closer to the early signing day period in December. However, he changed course and eventually committed much earlier, picking the USC Trojans in September. However, things came to an end with that pledge, and he flipped from the Trojans to UF on Monday. This comes after a visit to UF this past weekend for the win over the Ole Miss Rebels. The Gators now have a pair of linebackers committed in the top 25 class, in the 25 class, excuse me. While there are still some wanted targets on the Gators board, Disagreements Jackson was one of, if not the top remaining wants out there. He's been a priority target for quite some time, and someone Billy Napier and his coaching staff have worked hard to keep in the state. Being close to home is always one, to be honest with you. Jackson said in his past attractions of UF to sell. Getting back on campus a lot, being able to do that, it's always good, not just the people. Linebackers coach and co-defensive coordinator Ron Roberts got to work quickly and build a relationship with Jackson since he was hired on staff. While he's been an important contact, fellow co-defensive coordinator Austin Armstrong has been the main contact. Austin Armstrong has been in touch, if not every day, then every other day. If his persistence is something Jackson has definitely taken notice of, it's definitely big to me. He said of Armstrong's efforts to recruit him hard. The DC taking time out of his day to reach out to me and try to check up, make sure my day is going well, school, and getting ready back into football. Jackson has been nothing but productive on the high school level for Seminole Ridge. In his first 3 years, varsity football, he's amassed an impressive 378 tackles. This past season, he's accounted for 135 tackles, 4 for loss, 4 forced fumbles, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, and a fumble recovery. Other teams in the mix for his in the mix for Jackson included Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, Penn State, and USC, obviously, because he flipped from there. With Jackson out in the fold, the Florida Gators now set at 16 verbal commitments to date, at least per right now until next Wednesday, which is early signing day, because of the total team playoff. Early signing day had to move up, so the Wednesday after the Florida State game was early signing day, where all the recruits should be in. And not only do the Florida Gators have 16 commitments right now, but per 247sports.com, at least by their ranking system, they've elevated from being in the 50s about a month ago to now being in the top 20. So Billy Napier is not only getting big wins against LSU and Ole Miss leading up to the FSU game, he's flipping commitments and building up in the top 20 class. And if he can land some more commitments, I'm checking out 24/7's overall team rankings. If he can flip some more commitments right now, he's only a few points behind Washington and Georgia Tech. So if he can flip a few more commitments, he may possibly get into the top 15, which is insane considering how bad the class was a few years back, and that's only with 16 commitments. So that tells you that his player average rating is top notch. It's at 89.87. It's just underneath 90. You still would like to be up in the top 10 like you were last year, certainly when you were at 1.3 in the nation, but you have done a good job of saving this class from being in the absolute dumps, because that's kind of where they were at one point in the season. And now you seem to not only saved your class, but you've also have just strengthened it even better. So you're only you're about 17 recruiting points behind Ole Miss now per 247. So considering where you were about a month ago, I'll consider this a vast improvement. And now we're going to get into an article from Hail Florida Hail talking about Florida football needs to show no mercy and put FSU out of their misery. Considering the bad year that Florida State has, I don't think smashing Florida State, which Florida should and probably will, is going to put them out of the misery, because they're going to have a whole off season to get to have this in their have this rubbed in their faces. Florida State, that is. And when Florida most likely beats Florida State, they'll be 2-10. And then when February 10th comes around, it's going to be Happy Florida State Seminole Day, and I'll be sure to drop a video then. But anyways, this time last year, the narratives for Florida and FSU when it came to football could not have been more different than they are now. The Seminoles were riding high with an 11-0 season, but were having to overcome the loss of Jordan Travis. The Gators were in the midst of a 4-game losing streak and also having to turn to their backup quarterback after losing Graham Mertz. By the way, this article is written by Benjamin Henderson. I'm going to put that in the description box. FSU won the game and went on to win the ACC title. And to say things have changed since that moment would be just a bit of an understatement. FSU has been so bad in 2024 that one almost feels sorry for them. I don't. But then one remembers the offseason pity party they threw for themselves because they were left out of the college football playoff. That is correct. And how they also were ignoring all the warnings from people, not just Miami and Florida fans, but also people that were saying, hey, you're not going to be as good as you were last year because of all the NFL talent that left. And Florida State did not believe it at all. Florida State fans didn't think about it at all. So they kind of, and not to mention all the ridiculous lawsuits that FSU's been throwing out towards ESPN, the ACC conference. It's just like this was like a season of humility to a deserving fan base. Like once they went up 8-0 like their opening possession against Georgia Tech in Ireland in the season opener, their season was practically done after that. Florida football double fries, no wins, TJ Pittinger. Last year, when FSU was left out of the playoffs, Seminole fans couldn't comprehend why a 13-0 record wasn't good enough. The common belief is that the injury to Travis knocked them out, but we also noted how FSU stumbled and bumbled through the 2023 season, even with Travis, and he's about to bring up a bunch of stuff that I was telling FSU fans last year. You beat a 6-6 Boston College team by 2 points when the Boston College Eagles had 18 penalties. You beat 8-4 Clemson in overtime after the kicker missed a 29-yard field goal at the end of the game, which would have cost you the game. You were trailing 7-5 Duke in the fourth quarter when Riley Leonard left the game with an injury. Well, actually, no, his injury got worse. He came into the game with an injury, so he was already a one-legged quarterback heading into it. But Florida State was struggling against that Duke team with an injured quarterback. At halftime, they were only up by 3 points to 3-9 Pitt. They did not look good in that game, as I told them. They beat Miami by 7 points, where the Hurricanes had a chance to tie it up before stalling out at midfield at the end of the game. And then they fell behind North Alabama 14-0 prior to Jordan Travis getting injured. So FSU had one of the best resumes of a college football program. But if you actually look and broke down their wins and looked at their performances, it's not as if they were truly a dominant team as their record would indicate. Yeah, they won their games, but they did not dominate the way you thought they would. Hell, even against Florida, who had a backup. Yes, I know FSU had a backup quarterback, but Florida had a backup quarterback too, and they were trailing throughout practically all the first half. In 2023, FSU was the student who earned an A in remedial math class and thought it made them superior to the student who earned a B in AP calculus. That's a great example. After their month-long pity party was over, FSU went out and had to face that student and lost 63-3 in the Orange Bowl. Some FSU fans desperately tried to write off the losses, no big deal, but as we wrote at the time, and one could write off Saturday's performance as well, that team didn't represent who the Seminoles truly were in 2023, and one would be correct. However, it clearly showed an indication how bad you were going to be in 2024 because it was obvious you had no depth, even though Mike Norvell's been there for 4 years, because he has struggled to put recruiting classes together to supplement the transfer portal additions that he was bringing into the program, which is what a lot of people try to tell you. You don't have the depth necessary behind those players. Question though, all the players that opted out were players that weren't going to return in 2024 anyway. But if the players that did take the field in the Garnet and Gold on Saturday are not the 2024 Seminoles, then who is? If FSU had lost by 35-3 or 45-10, no one would have blinked. 63-3 is FSU wasting any opportunity it had to get players that will make up their 2024 squad better. 63-3 is FSU throwing a month-long pity party and winding up with a less productive bowl month than Florida. 63-3 is a sign that 2023 was built on smoke and mirrors by a team that got by away with having zero depth by playing in a weak conference. Exactly. The ACC is a weak conference. I mean, even this year with all the additions that they've made, it's still a relatively bad conference. I mean, it's the Big 12 has more competition for teams competing for the conference title game than ACC is right now. That's why SMU can go in there and run the table, almost run the table against the ACC. They're already in the ACC championship game, and they've been in it 1 year. It's not a strong conference, and even with all the players that FSU had last year, they struggled against those bad teams. Sinking ship for as bad as Florida's been at times this season, it doesn't come close to the wasteland that has been in Tallahassee in 2024. After going to Ireland and losing to Georgia Tech and coming back home and losing to Boston College of Memphis, it was obvious this FSU team was broken. I figured the Georgia Tech loss was heartbreaking, but Boston College right there told me this team might not even make a bowl game. And then when they lost to Memphis, I'm like, yeah, this season is over for them. DJ Uyunglele was a bigger flop than Crystal Pepsi. FSU's vaunted defensive line rolled over and played dead several times. They leveraged FSU for Mark Norvell leveraged FSU for an 8-year contract worth $84 million that Seminole fans already have buyer's remorse over. By the way, I think it was Bud Elliott who said there's not a defensive line on Florida's roster that would start at FSU. Well, clearly he was wrong on that. FSU is so bad in 2024 that Florida could win by 30, and it actually wouldn't prove anything about the Gators, which is facts. As a Gator fan, I would love a 30-point beatdown of FSU, but it's not. But everybody's blown out FSU this year. Notre Dame, North Carolina, SMU, Clemson. Who hasn't smoked FSU this year? Even Duke got a victory against them. But all last year, we had to hear about how great FSU was and endure all the Sunbelt Billy jokes from the people in the Garnet and Gold. And Saturday is at least a chance at catharsis for those in the orange and blue. And he's right. They need to beat FSU. I say give me at least a 21-point victory, but really you should do a little bit better than that. And to this guy Benjamin's point about FSU defensive line, Florida State's run defense is terrible. They've given up 190 yards on 7 different occasions this year. 6 of those occasions went over 200. You should be able to run the football on this poor FSU run defense. If you can run the ball on Ole Miss's defense, and their defense came into last Saturday the number 2 in the nation, FSU should be like chop suey for you. You should be able to run through these guys like foreign water through a tourist. There's no excuse for Florida to lose this game, and there should not be an excuse for Florida to lose this game. And if Billy Napier loses this game, all this goodwill that he's built himself up after these last 2 weeks will go out the window, and deservedly so. There is no excuse to struggle against Florida State or let alone lose to them. This game needs to be a beatdown. They need to absolutely smoke these guys. And they need to run up the score because it's a rivalry. It's rivalry Saturday. It's FSU week. FSU hate week is every week. When Florida was 4-8 in 2013, did FSU show any mercy? No, they went into the swamp and put 30 points on Florida that day. 37-7. When Florida, sorry about that, there's noise going around. Sorry if you heard that. When FSU was 5-6 and Florida was 8-3 in 2018, and Florida had a chance to ruin their bowl game, you think those players for the orange and blue, you think they turned that down? Nope, they blew FSU out like they were supposed to, 41-14. And when FSU came into the swamp last year and Florida had a chance to make a bowl game, even with a backup quarterback, both teams had backup quarterbacks. FSU, what did they do? They beat Florida and they ran around on the football field holding up that gator head. That's what Rivalry Saturday is about. That is what Rivalry Saturday is about. And they need to go out there and show it. There's no excuse for why Florida cannot win this game by 21 points. I expect a 38-17 victory for the Florida Gators and to finally get that winning record that has eluded the Florida Gators since COVID. They've had 3 losing records back to back. There's no excuse for them to lose this one. If Memphis, Duke, Southern Methodist can beat Florida State and they don't have the talent that Florida has, then Florida should absolutely make it look easy against these guys. And I expect nothing less. Go Gators.